The Blob.
Now, man is no longer the supreme being on this planet.
The Blob is a pretty famous body horror movie, and for good reason. I get to why in a bit, of course, but this has been regarded as one of the best horror remakes of all time. But that is more anecdotal evidence from the 15 group chats and pages that I participate in. The ratings on Google show that the remake has a very marginal increase on how many people liked it in comparison to the original. On Rotten Tomatoes, less critics liked it, but the audiences liked it more. But in both cases, they are still not very big differences. IMDb has a higher rating for the remake, but again, it's just marginal. Sorry there, kiddies, but my opinion on this film is going to be just going off of the remake because I've never actually seen the original. If you have seen both, let me know in the comments which one you like more. Enough of this. We will be spooky on this very special Friday the 13th in October, or die trying. The movie starts off pretty classic 80s. We get a football game to introduce some characters like Meg the cheerleader and Paul the football player, and at the same time, a classic greaser type Brian Flagg is going off of a homemade jump on his motorcycle and totally eats it. Bitch! We jump to a diner and get introduced to Sheriff Herb Geller shooting his shot with the waitress Fran, and it's a classic example of a girl telling a guy that she's too busy for him, but writes on his check that she's off at 11. What a slut. Paul gets ready to pick up Meg for his date tonight. Meanwhile, a meteor crashes nearby and a homeless man starts poking at it with a stick. Naturally. And a gooey type substance latches onto his arm.
This is gonna be good.
At night is where all of our stories merge. Brian is fixing his bike in the woods and sees the homeless man trying to desperately hack off his own hand, then he just takes off. He runs into the middle of the road where Paul and Meg bounce his ass off their car. They all take him to the hospital. The homeless man gets taken into a room while Brian bails and Paul and Meg stick around. Paul catches a glimpse into the homeless guy's room and sees something weird going on, so he checks it out and brings a doctor. They remove his covers and the homeless guy has had half of his lower body just completely devoured.
Yes! Yes! Oh, yeah!
Paul calls for help while we see the goo crawl on top of the ceiling and fall onto him. Meg comes in and helps him out, and we see Paul slowly dissolve, and Meg desperately tries to pull him out and just ends up ripping his arm off. Holy shit. I really thought this would be a classic story where Paul the jock would have made it. I guess it's the kind of story where the greaser slides into Meg's cheerleading outfit.
Giggity. What? Nothing, it's stupid.
We get a few more awesome kills like the one in the car. Honestly, I kind of want to show off all the kills here because they are top notch. I can honestly say that when it comes to practical effects, this movie is like platinum tier, one of the best of the 80s. So the story progresses in a pretty awesome or depressing way depending on how you look at it. I know you all know how I look at it. So all the side characters get got. The car scene took care of Paul's best friend and his date, and the Blob makes its way to the diner and gets the cook, then the sheriff, then the waitress, and some of the most shocking and impressive kills I've ever seen in a movie. The government arrives in the town, all decked out in hazmat suits. Oh goody, the government is here. No need to worry, townsfolk.
You serious, Clark?
The movie theater is next. Why, you might ask? Well, we still have a few side characters to kill. There's Penny's younger brother, Kevin, and his best friend watching a horror movie, and the Blob lays waste to the whole theater. Penny is able to get there to save Kevin, but his friend isn't so lucky. Hot damn. I know I haven't seen every 80s horror movie, but it's always a big surprise when we see a kid get picked off. Even in horror movies, it's still pretty rare to actually see that shit on screen. Meanwhile, Brian is spying on the government, and big surprise, and I'm actually not being sarcastic here, the government guys shave off a layer of the meteor, which is actually a US mini flying object. Oh damn, the Blob is not an alien but a government experiment? But...
That's crazy. The government doesn't lie to people.
Do you think so?
The Blob is in the sewers and the government tries to get it contained in there. Brian is able to get in there and get Penny and Kevin out in a pretty sick motorcycle run, bruh. Brian exposes the government to the whole town and the Blob actually snags the head scientist, and all the other guys are like, fuck this thing, and unload bullets and bombs down into the sewers. But it doesn't work. The Blob gets out and takes out the government types and some of the townspeople. Penny figures out that it can't stand the cold by using a fire extinguisher and a desperate attempt to keep it away from her. Brian is able to get his hands on a massive snowmaking machine which neutralizes the beast into a bunch of little crystals, and they pack up the thing and bring it to the ice house, whatever the fuck that is, to keep it cold forever. And that's the movie. Yeah, I know there is a teaser at the end involving the psycho preacher, but it's so tacked on, and the remake never had a sequel, so the movie would have just been better if they cut that part out. They probably only added it because it was in the original, but again, I never saw it, so I'm just speculating. Or just guessing. Honestly, this movie is phenomenal. I highly recommend it. It's got everything you'd want in a serious 80s body horror movie, and if you haven't seen it, I cannot think of a better recommendation for this Halloween season. And if you have seen it, give it a rewatch. It's just as good as you remember it. Tomorrow we're watching The Stuff.
We are under alien attack by a popular dessert known as The Stuff.